Time is of the essence, and my guest knows all about time. Abingdon Mullin is the founder and CEO of the Abingdon Company. It's based in Las Vegas. It's the city's only independent watch brand. For more than 15 years, Abingdon has successfully carved out a niche in the male-dominated watch industry, demonstrating that women are also passionate about timepieces. Abingdon Company is opening a new headquarters in downtown Vegas this fall. For everything about Abingdon, go to abingdonco.com, and you can follow the company on Instagram at the Abingdon Co. and also on YouTube and all the major social platforms. And Abingdon, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
No, it's a pleasure. So why don't we start a watch party?
I like it. Let's
You
do
like the
it.
idea? I think you could
I
spot
love
these
this.
things all around the city. Whenever they have a watch party for some game, you're there with the watches. How in the world did you get involved in the world of watches and time? Where did that fascination start?
Oh my gosh. Well, it didn't start. That's the funny part is I didn't have a passion for watches, but I was getting my pilot's license because I wanted to be a professional pilot after college. That was what I aspired. That was, that whole when you're a kid and you're looking up at the sky and you're like, I want to do that. And so I was getting my pilot certificates and working on all my training. And as kind of a gift to myself for completing the private, I wanted to gift myself a pilot's watch. This was back in 2006. It was a few years ago. And I just didn't see anything that didn't look like a spare tire wrapped around my wrist. So, I'm 5'6" and 110 dripping wet. There is no way that the aviator style watches that were in existence were going to fit me. So it turned out that a lot of my girlfriends who also flew airplanes, they had kind of found the same thing. And I thought, well, ladies, if I try and figure out how to make a watch, do you think you could help me design it? And that's where it started.
So what you could have done initially is maybe got all the women together and write a letter to one of those watch companies and see if they would come out with a female brand, but instead you took it upon yourself to just go ahead and do it.
Yeah, well, that's funny that you mentioned that because I had approached a watch company where it was kind of a local one in the LA area where I was learning how to fly at the time. And they were not interested, like at all. And I had several women who were willing to put down thousands of dollars for a watch that was made with them in mind. And they were like, yeah, and just kind of dragged it along. And we're like, all right, well, maybe we need to do this ourselves. So, and to be fair, I don't think I want to say the next time an aviation watch came out that was designed for women was probably about a decade after I launched my company. So it still took a long time for the big brands to realize that women are a market.
Yeah, it's a definite market segment. You were born in England, you were raised in California, and yet here you are in Las Vegas. So how did that happen? How did you get from California to Las Vegas? Was it after you got, obviously after your pilot's license, right? And you got that at the Santa Monica airport, right? That's where you were flying?
Yes. Yeah, the weather is great to learn how to fly out of Santa Monica. It's the oldest airport in LA County. And if you have an opportunity to go visit, please do so because they are planning on shutting down the airport in the next few years.
Oh.
So it has a historical significance.
Oh, absolutely. I toured it about 2-3 years ago, and there's a conference room there where it was donated, I think, by a very historic company, the furniture and the paintings and all of that up in the main area. So you're right. Yeah. So how did you end up in Las Vegas then from there?
Well, my husband, he's battle-born, born and raised here, went to Rancho, and his name is Sean Mullin, and he was running a flight school out of North Las Vegas Airport. It was called Elite. A few years ago, he sold it, but one of my first jobs in flying was being a demo pilot for an aircraft company called Cirrus. And Elite was the flight school that you could learn how to fly a Cirrus in. So I would travel all over the Southwest from Denver on up to, let's see, where was Seattle? I think I went as high as Seattle and then as south as, Phoenix, San Diego, and that was kind of my territory. So I met him in 2007. About a year after I got my ratings. We were friends. We were just kind of dating, other people and practicing with the others, as they say, about your exes. And then it was around 2010, we started courting each other formally. And as he says, I flew into his life and I have never left his side since 2010.
So did he propose up in the air?
He did. He flies both helicopters and airplanes. And so one day it was hilarious because he'd been wanting to propose to me for some time. And I was like, oh, I'm busy. I got this company thing. And he had his company stuff, and we just couldn't sync our schedules. And one day he's like, I really want to go watch the sunset and take the helicopter out. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. I've got this and that and meetings, and I got to pack up and blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, gosh, I really shouldn't say no to those opportunities. And I'll just call him and let him know, yeah, let's do it. Let's go watch the sunset. And so it was a very last minute. He didn't think he needed to get the helicopter ready. He had to go get his ring. Of course, he was carrying it around with him the whole time. And then we flew out to Red Rock and landed. It was just him and I. And we watched the sunset over Vegas, and he proposed. And then his joke, of course, is if I said no, he was going to just leave, and then I'd have to walk back. But that did not happen. So.
No, you would have ridden a burro back from Red
Yeah,
Rock. Yeah, I can
if
see
I
that
found
now.
one. Yes.
Yeah.
Today is Sean's birthday too. So happy birthday, my love. Love you.
So now you've got this watch company, and just out of curiosity, are any of the manufacturing or assembly aspects of it based here as well, or is it just the main
Oh,
office
yeah.
and you based here?
No, absolutely. We do a large percentage of the manufacturing in our new downtown location. So I source from suppliers all over the world. We use Swiss movements, we use Japanese movements, and we're also using American movements made in Phoenix. So I will have some assembly done in different places depending on the supplier, and then we bring everything in-house here in Vegas, and then we put the final piece, everything all together and into the box and ship it on out.
That's great. I'll
So
have to come by and take a look
everybody,
at the assembly process if you allow visitors just to watch that process, because the assembly of watches always is a fascinating process.
oh, it's very meticulous, and it's so slow, especially for me. I can build a watch from start to finish, but I'm not as fast as my watchmakers. But that is one thing that we do on our YouTube channel, and I've done it on some Facebook and Instagram lives, is I will sit there and I will very methodically just put together a watch and explain what I'm doing. And sometimes it's 30 minutes and sometimes it's an hour and a half. It
Yeah.
kind of depends on how fast I am, but you're definitely welcome to come by anytime.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. And definitely check that out on YouTube. You surprised me in this sense. I got the sense that you were, and I mean this in a positive way, a type A personality. And yet the idea of you putting the watch parts together over a period of an hour and a half, I can't
Well,
reconcile that in my head.
we all need to balance, right?
Yeah, true, true. When you looked at the watches for women, and there's a wide range, if you go to her website on Abingdon Co., how do you decide, is it more style than function, or is it a combination of style and function as you decide for each timepiece?
For the Abingdon company, we always start with function, and most of our beginnings of a brand new watch is based on input from our crew members. That's what we call our customers.
Mhm.
And so when we go to a trade show, like we've been to SEMA or DEMA, the JCK show, air shows, we go to Oshkosh every year in Wisconsin and things like that. We get a lot of good feedback from women that are like, gosh, I've always wanted X, but they never made it. Or I ride my motorcycles. I taught watchmaking at Sturgis last year, and that was different. But you find some really interesting conversations and desires that women have in the watch world, but they never thought the watch world considered them, so they never said anything. But when we're there and they see, oh my gosh, you have something for me, this is amazing, and it's not made of plastic, wow, that's even better. Would you ever consider doing this or that? And I even train my customer service team that if anybody emails in or calls in and says, hey, do you guys have a watch that does this or that, and we don't have that, our response is, wow, that's a great idea. What else would you build into a watch if you were to design a watch?
Mhm.
And we take that information. I still have feedback from people from the beginnings in 2007 when I launched the company. And if we hear an idea enough times, we're going to build it. So the function is always first. We can make it beautiful after we get the function down.
Yeah, that's a good point. What's the most unusual suggestion for a function that you came across that you didn't
A
anticipate?
laser.
A what?
A laser.
A laser?
Putting a laser on a watch. Yeah, absolutely.
Wait a
So,
minute.
and
Wait
I
a
actually have a
second.
design for
Wait a
one.
second. Wait a minute. Okay, I always hear about there, it's a crime to shoot a laser at an aircraft, but this is the
Oh,
opposite.
yeah.
This is a pilot having a laser on a watch aiming it out into the land there, or am I
Don't
missing
shoot lasers
something?
at aircraft. No, no.
Okay.
Yeah, what was the application? I'm trying to remember the environment that they needed the laser in, but we developed a case that on the side of it, it had its own separate power supply and it had a laser that would shoot out the case. That one was tough to make beautiful. And we just, unfortunately, it just wasn't one that ever came to fruition, but
I
it
could
was
see
a
it work.
request.
Yeah, I could see it working in a case where you have a lot of people, customers who are speakers and need a laser pointer and they're too lazy to carry a knife. Yeah, exactly.
Totally.
A little wrist action and you've got the speech done or the
Or
presentation.
maybe all the cat owners, they'll just like go around.
No, that's great too. I like that. Okay, so laser, and I could see why it would take a little bit more ingenuity to make it look decent, especially when the
Mm.
rest of the watch is elegant. So you want the laser part to be part of the overall architecture of the watch.
Yeah, and lasers, I mean, as small as you can get them, there's still a tube style structure that needs
Mhm.
to happen in some capacity, whether it's protected under a case or on the side, which is where we put it. So it was a challenge. That's, and I'm here for challenges. I love that. But yeah, that
I have a
was.
challenge for you then. How about a man's watch?
Oh, we make men's watches all the time.
There you
Challenge has
go.
already been accepted. Yeah,
I know.
absolutely.
I figured I'd throw that in. I knew that, but I just figured I'd stump you with a request for that. But I like the fact that you're designing it, and these watches are not what I would call frilly watches. They're professional watches, clearly, and yet they're designed with female customers in mind, generally speaking.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
And when you started that, your now husband, was he supportive of your watch wandering, or did he feel you should just keep flying and not be bothered with doing any of that stuff?
Oh no, he's always been a supporter. And it's neat. He owns 3 Abingdon watches. And the last one he just got this year, and he didn't even tell me. And the funny thing is, he flies for an airline, so he was off on a trip, and I get a package in the mail because he ended up buying it through one of my retailers. He didn't buy it directly through us. So I get this package in the mail and it's addressed to him, but it's from one of my retailers and it looked very familiar. And I usually open the mail when he's on trips just in case it's something important. And I said, "Hey, you've got this package." And he's like, "Oh, yeah, go ahead and open it." And I open it. It's one of my watches. And I'm thinking, "Honey." And he's like, "Surprise." So no, he's always been incredibly supportive.
So by doing it that way, instead of ordering it directly from you, he didn't get the spouse discount.
No, but he'll probably
No.
get free service, for life and, all that kind of thing.
What are some of the unique features? Obviously, the laser is very unique, but what are some of the features that, in general, females request that started you on this quest, actually, that they look for in a watch besides the overall design? Clearly, you don't want to, as you said earlier, you don't want something that looks like it's strapped onto your wrist and is going to just, weigh you down. You want something
Yeah,
practical, light, and looks decent. So what
sure.
are some of the main factors in some of your watches for design for
You
females?
know, Oddly enough, it's even the materials. A sapphire crystal is the hardest crystal that you can have, an anti-reflective coating on top of that crystal.
Mhm.
These are things that are really missing in women's watches. Usually they use mineral glass or they'll use acrylic. Even an all metal movement, where if you want it to last a quality movement, which is the engine of the watch, that should not have any plastic parts in it because that will wear down faster than an all metal movement.
Right.
And there's even some watches out there that are designed for women that have what's called like fake complications or fake function. It looks like it might be a stopwatch, but it doesn't actually. The buttons don't press. It's just a look. And so that's frustrating because if you do want a stopwatch, one of our primary types of customers are women in the medical field.
Mhm.
And if they are timing a heartbeat, then they actually need a timer.
Okay.
And even in some nursing schools, they require having a sweeping second hand or a stopwatch on your wrist at all times. So those types of things you would think that they would be oh, everywhere. You're going to have tons of options for those for women's watches. And yet, unfortunately, watch companies, they either they make it out of price range, they're in the thousands of dollars, and that might not be something that, you know, a nursing student would be able to afford, or it's fake and it's plastic and it's going to break on them the first time, you know, they get their hands into some liquids that aren't rated for that watch. So having decent water resistance, having high quality materials, and having durability are probably the top three things I always hear from women saying, do you have anything that can withstand X, you know, YZ, whatever I do in my job or my fun time? So
Yeah, they're in the professional field. They want something that reflects that both in
yeah,
looks and in function. So that makes
exactly.
perfect sense. So now that you've got this watch company up and running, it's been up and running since what, 2007?
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
that's a long time. That's great. How did you first find yourself on the map or put yourself on the map? Was it word of mouth or was it through some industry, or how was that people began to realize, particularly females, that you had watches that were designed for them that before they never had that opportunity to buy?
It was, you know, a lot of, I starting a company in 2007 was probably a fantastic idea, but then 2008 hit, if you recall, the economic recession of '08,
Yes.
and
Right.
it was a very challenging time. But what that did for me is it really set a foundation for being a very frugal and green company. I couldn't even afford a printer, and getting investors to invest in my company was just not going to happen in that time. So I would do something that I actually do still today. I always wear two watches. That gets a lot of people asking, like, why are you wearing two watches? And so if you see a blonde, short-haired woman running around Vegas with two watches, hi, I'm Abingdon. But that was one of the big things that just word of mouth over and over and over and over, and trying to think outside of the box of how could I market, because I don't have the marketing dollars.
Right.
And I actually sold the first watch before I ever even made a product. It was off of a computer generated rendering. And one of my friends was just at a party, and she met a young woman who was learning how to fly and said, I've got a friend I went to college with. She's starting an aviation watch company for women. And this girl, she told her parents, hey, I want one of these watches. I heard that this thing it's going to be a thing. And I barely had a website up with just two pictures of the first two styles.
Right.
And they sent me a check, and I still have a copy of that check. I made a copy before I
Absolutely.
cashed it.
Sure.
But I got a check for a watch before I ever even came out with a product. They were my first customers.
So the practical aspects of this, now you've decided to go forward because you have it, you see that there's a demand for it. You even have that check, which is great that you made
Yeah.
a copy to keep. How do you then organize or assemble the people and the materials to start that process of manufacturing or assembling watches? How does that?
There are so many ways to skin that cat. I mean, goodness. I think what a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners do at the beginning, especially with a company that maybe they didn't have prior knowledge of, and that was definitely me. I didn't have grandfather. I often get asked, "Oh, was your grandfather a watchmaker, your father, or do you have that in your family history?" No, absolutely not. The good thing about flying airplanes is it's very similar to watches. They're both mechanical but artistic. So I use the same part of my brain that I use when I fly. So that was helpful. But working on trying to just have the right suppliers, have the right team, doing all the things yourself, which you normally do when you're starting your own business at the beginning, but then entrusting people to take on some of those tasks, because not only are they better at it, but you need to free up your time to build the business. And I'd say, you know, it's taken, we're in our 17th year, so the company's almost an adult. I can almost kick her out of the house. But now we're sold in all the military exchanges, Army, Air Force, Navy, and Marines. We're sold in Macy's. We're sold in a lot of the corporate catalogs for large companies. When you have like a performance review, or you've
Mhm.
done 5, 10, 15 years at a company, and they could gift you an Abingdon watch. And so we've had a slow and steady growth. And that's always been kind of the way I wanted to fashion this company. It's something that Coco Chanel, she had always said that it wasn't a goal of hers to ever sell Chanel. It was her, it was part of her life.
Sure.
And I never had this idea of like, oh, let me just start a business, let me sell it after 5 years or 10 years and then go on to the next thing. No, I mean, my customers fuel me in the morning, that they're the reason I get up. I love the challenge of not only seeing what mountains they're scaling and Olympic gold medals they're winning and records they're setting and how they're using the watch, but also just how can I be a part of their world?
Mhm.
And it's fun to know that you're on the wrist of both the men and the women that are serving our country, to the first responders and our essential workers and everybody in between, and even just the hobbyists that are going out on Lake Mead and trying to break all their gear, jet skiing around. So it's a blast. I love this.
Do you
It's a
ever
good
get one of your
job.
do you ever get one of your customers who are big fans of yours and the watches, and when they are interviewed, they're wearing the watch and they might even mention the watch? Do you ever get that pop up?
Ah, butterflies in my stomach every single time. Absolutely. I love it. Yes.
Do you think you're going to expand beyond Las Vegas, or do you think it's as in Coco Chanel, who you mentioned earlier, this is what you do, so you don't want to go, you don't want to grow too fast and then it becomes less personal, but you don't want to go too slow because there's a certain momentum and time waits for no man, especially when you make
Sure.
watches or a woman. So what's your future plans in terms of that? Do you think you'll stay primarily based in Las Vegas?
I do. I really love Las Vegas. I mean, I'm 40 years old and I've lived in Las Vegas for 14 years. It's the longest I've ever lived in a city,
Mhm.
and I don't plan on leaving here. I want all my family to move out here as well. But I I think it's I've kind of done it in reverse in a way, because I grew internationally in the first 10 years, up until the 10-year anniversary in 2017, where I then moved into our first location here in Las Vegas, which was 2 locations ago. And we're on our third, and just getting bigger and better every time. And so I've I was always operating out of a storage unit. I was always operating the business out of like a warehouse or a
Right.
fulfillment center somewhere, typically in Ohio. That's where a lot of fulfillment centers are. And then we were all just home working from laptops and using things like Google Drive. It wasn't a Las Vegas business. It was just an e-commerce business. Really,
Mhm.
that's what it was. But now, and especially with our new downtown location, which we plan on opening in the fall, we're right on 4th Street where the parade walks by. So every time a parade is happening, we're going to be right there. And just being able, I want to start doing some technical classes with some of the programs here in the city to teach the skilled trade of watchmaking, and having, like you said, watch parties, right?
Yeah,
I mean, who
exactly.
doesn't want to see the Golden Knights win the Stanley Cup again? And I mean, I don't know if we're going to do it this year, but if we want to watch the games, Raiders games, the Olympics that are coming up, and then have a nice venue where you can sip on some nice drinks and shop watches and enjoy your time with other enthusiasts in the city.
Yeah, and I could see you getting involved with a lot of different promotions, including Formula One and all
Oh,
the
definitely.
things that go on here in
And
Las
we did
Vegas.
that last year. We
Mhm.
were involved with the Formula One race last year. We released a 40-piece only. It was a limited edition race watch at Neiman Marcus right there at Fashion Show. They were an excellent partner to work with, so we plan on doing that with them again.
Now that's great. Do you always think or we only have about a minute or two left, but are you always thinking of new ideas for the watches? Again, not so much at this point function, we discussed that, and looks, but just maybe different shapes for a watch that doesn't necessarily have to be round. It could be triangle or it can be rectangle
Yes.
or.
I don't know so much about the shape so much, because I can get a lot done within a circle,
Mhm.
than I can maybe with a triangle or a square. Not to say that there's not things that could be done in those too, but I really like thinking about material. So maybe not steel or a precious metal, but something I love the idea of working with carbon fiber. I love the idea of having a polymer that can expand so you can get better water resistance. I'm kind of thinking more of like the industrial material side and what you can do with like like for example, a hairspring in an automatic watch. If you make it out of silicone, it decreases your magnetization a ton. So those that work around MRIs or magnets, they don't have their watch go wonky when they're at work. So that kind of gets me going. That gets me ticking. A total pun. That was a horrible pun, but that's
I love puns. Don't worry about it. Tell us a little bit about the foundation.
So the foundation is called Abingdon Foundation, and we launched it. It's a Nevada 501c3. We launched it on the 10-year anniversary of the business. And it's one of the things that's the most dear to my heart because it really is about fostering and educating and mentoring women to get into STEAM and STEM fields. We include arts in STEM, so we call it STEAM, and we provide scholarships internationally. We bring them to some of the major conferences and events here in Vegas, like SEMA, DEMA, to get them interested in skilled trades or get them interested in maybe pursuing a career in the dive industry or possibly even horology, the study of watchmaking. And it's just such a it just warms my soul. It is one of the things that I think is the best parts of this company because we are truly changing lives and we're helping young girls and women make that critical decision that they do when they're young adults is, do I go into this field or that field? Will I be accepted? Are there opportunities for me? And as we bring them to these events and we pay for the airfare, we pay for the hotel, the food, everything. And we hook them arm in arm and say, okay, you want to go in and pursue this? This is who you need to talk to. Or do you want to become a corporate pilot? Then we'll introduce you to these people. Or you want to know about welding? Let me introduce you to Tamara, and we'll just, we'll foster the Rolodex. I know we don't use Rolodexes anymore, but we'll foster the contact list for these young women to just pursue something that they may have a passion about, but they don't really know how to go about it.
And for information on the foundation, they just have to go to the website.
Yeah, it's right on our website, on our company website, under our story. So we have a whole page dedicated to the foundation, how you can apply for our scholarships. And we also sell books on Amazon that are only $10 that help fund our scholarship program. So if you search on Amazon, Brilliant and Abingdon, you'll find our Brilliant book series. And they're made for kids from like 4 to 14, 4 to 17 probably. Some are for older kids, some are for younger kids. But it's all activities about STEM and STEAM industries, construction and technology and all things in between. They're really fun.
Great. And that's abingtonco.com. My most important question is, and I think it's very philosophical, and in many ways, the most important question to ask of all, which digital or analog?
Oh, analog all day.
There you go. Yeah. So many people just have their eyes on digital, but analog it's its own. I think time has a different meaning when you look at an analog watch than a digital watch.
I think it does as well. And I think a lot of people also buy watches, not necessarily for the timekeeping. It's to commemorate a moment in time in their life, a wedding, the birth of a child, a promotion. And I am here for the digital watch space, but I think you can do a lot more than just count your steps and, receive your text messages. That's not a watch, that's a wearable. But let's utilize the digital capabilities and do something more and take watchmaking to the next level. That's really where I'd like to see it go.
Well, that's a great way to leave it. My guest has been Abingdon Mullin. She's the founder and CEO of Abingdon Company. It's based here in Las Vegas, the city's only independent watch brand. And for everything about Abingdon, go to abingdonco.com, abingdonco.com. And you can follow the company on Instagram at the Abingdon Co. And of course, on all the other platforms, including YouTube, where you can watch her assemble watches and take them apart and get frustrated because she's type A. At least that's my theory. Anyway, Abingdon, thanks so much for being on the show.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
See you next time.